When you're ready, let the knees fall over to one side or the other, whatever side feels most appropriate. And then we'll press ourselves up through seat and into tabletop. When we come into that tabletop space, wrist, elbow, shoulders stack, fingers spread wide, balance the spine so that you feel nice and neutral. And let's curl our toes, lift our seat, and find our way into down dog. Press back through that handprint, get the hips to lift and extend toward that back corner of your room. And then we'll step our left foot forward at a lunge. As that left foot lands, plant your right hand, take your left hand up into a twist. Smooth more deeply into that front knee. So we're looking forward towards 90-degree bend. And then let your left hand come back down and we'll step back and into down dog. Shift your weight forward into plank. Think about resetting the left and right side of your body. Lift the seat back into down dog. And then we'll step our right foot forward and into lunge. Left hand plants, right hand opens up into the twist. Feel that lateral edge of the hip. Be strong in that left quad. Right hand comes back down to the mat. Right foot steps back into down dog. Shift your weight forward into plank. Lift your seat back into down dog. And let's walk ourselves forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Awareness drifts to the sacrum. Let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. And we can roll those palms forward for a little strong mountain pose here. Get nice and stable and rooted. And let's inhale, our hands together at heart center. Take yourself 5% of the way into a chair. So it's just a little subtle drop, just enough to feel the pelvic bowl want to tilt. And then we'll rise back up, sweep the arms up and overhead, and come onto a little tiptoe balance. Release the heels and fold forward with an exhale. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, walk yourself back into plank. Wrist, elbow, shoulders stack. Slowly, gently, delicately lower yourself to your belly. Slide your hands underneath your forehead for a little crocodile pose. And once again, think about creating length through the entirety of the body. So you can wiggle those toes away from you. Maybe you lift the forehead just slightly and push the top of the head forward to get that maximum distance. And then once you set that maximum distance, we'll give ourselves about 25 seconds here just to allow the length to fully settle in. Fluid, rhythmic breath without breaking the fluidity of the cycle. And then ensure that your left hand is on the bottom of your stack. So if it's not, just flip them. Left hand's on the bottom of the stack. And then we're going to take our entirety of our, actually, let's anchor the hips first. So feel the front of the hips press into the mat. Even if that requires a little arch in the low back, feel the front hips press into the mat. And then we're going to take the entirety of the torso, arms staying with the stacked position of the hands, elbows out, over towards the right. So this will look like this. Recreating the shape that we had when we had our hands behind us. Now we just have a little bit of a extension of our lumbar spine. Words are hard for me tonight. And then let's come back to neutral. And we'll flip the hand stack. So right hand comes on the bottom, left hand is on the top. And then we'll take ourselves over towards the left. You're completely under control of the depth of all of these shapes. Keep that in mind. So if you're uncomfortable, back off until you feel more comfortable. And then when you feel balanced, we'll come back to neutral. Slide the hands underneath the shoulder, press into the strength just above the knees, and we'll press ourselves up. The hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop. Curl your toes, lift your seat, find down dog. Tiptoe forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. And we'll sweep ourselves up, or you can roll yourself up, whatever feels most comfortable for the spine here. Coming into a mountain pose, hands at heart center. Exhale into the mountain stability. Really think about landing and grounding here. And then when you're right, as your right hands stay together, we'll slide our left foot back and into half crescent, right, without the arm extension. Think about balancing the shoulder placement. So squeeze the shoulders back, really try to create nice stability across the shoulder girdle, and then maintain that as you sweep your arms up and overhead for a full expression of crescent. Turn the palms towards the front of the room, and then open those arms up towards cactus. Squeeze back, but don't feel the belly go forward. Really try to keep the spine vertical. Hands come back together at heart center, and we'll step forward, back into mountain. With those hands together, we'll slide the right foot straight back into lunge. Create the stability in the shape. Set those hips up nice and strong. Broaden out, squeeze back through the shoulders. Keep that torso nice and strong. We'll sweep the arms up. Palms will roll forward. We'll open the arms up towards cactus. Get that big, wide stability here. And then hand come back to heart center, and we'll step forward and into fold. Sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale back through fold. Really remember to let the top of the head go. Really complete each duration of the folds we go through tonight. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Settle, think, relax. Grab opposite elbows and rock a little side to side. Length and depth of the fold as the primary focus. So even as the musculature is swaying you laterally, you're thinking about increasing the depth of the fold, head towards the floor with every opportunity, with every conscious thought. And then we'll release the hands back down to the floor. Slide the right foot straight back into lunge. Ground the right knee, flip the top of the right foot, and sweep yourself up into grounded crescent. Take the arms or the palms forward, then go out towards cactus. And then we're just going to rotate straight towards that left side. So thinking about trying to align your arms and your left thigh, not an easy thing to do. So don't feel like you need to do that. It's just kind of the direction we're headed. And then we come back to neutral, sweep the arms up. Exhale, float the hands down to the mat. Flip your right toe mound over and lift your right knee back into lunge. Then slide back into your left hamstring for a little pyramid shape here. Push back into that right heel and see if you can get the high calf insertion on the right side to really start to elongate. And then rebend your left knee. Step forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide your left foot straight back into lunge. Ground your left knee. Flip the top of the left foot. Sweep yourself up into crescent, grounded crescent. Turn the palms towards the front of the room. Open yourself up towards cactus, and then we twist right elbow back, left elbow forward, trying to line those elbows up with that, essentially towards the right thigh anyway. We come back to neutral, sweep the arms up, float the hands down to the mat. Hands help us flip that left foot over, lift the left knee, slide back into the right hamstring for pyramid side two. Remember to push down that big toe mound, push back into that left heel and drive the energy into that high calf insertion. Get that calf to elongate here. Then we bend the right knee, step forward back into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant the hands and walk ourselves back into down dog. As you get into down dog here, try to really take advantage of the high calf length that you've offered. So really push back. Heels are energizing down towards that back edge of your mat. And then lifting the hips up to get the full length of the spine. Then we'll come down to hands and knees tabletop. And we'll sink back and into child's pose. There's this king was called a huge meeting. The majority of the meetings he'll ever hold are more or less 5 or 6 people around the table. But this meeting, he's called not only his top advisors, not only his secondary advisors, but his third, fourth, fifth down the line. And so this room is packed full of like 60 people. And he's made it very clear he wants the entirety of the day blocked out. He's told the entirety of the staff that no one is to open the room to this door for any reason. And he starts in on this meeting by just kind of offering a little insight into his world. He tells the entirety of the room that he is feeling a little stressed. It's winter, conditions are cold, things aren't as fun. And there's been this constant snow just kind of hammering the castle. Last 15 seconds here. When you're right, when you're ready, fingertips are going to pull you forward into hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, shift your weight just slightly forward. So the torso comes like maybe a ½ inch forward of where it normally would, and then press into the fingerprints like you're trying to push your fingertips through the mat. Keep that fingerprint energy as you curl your toes and lift your seat. And note how the fingers, if you're pressing so hard to the fingers, the middle knuckle on the fingers is going to start to kind of curl up. That's kind of what we're looking for. We want those fingers to have so much energy that they're forcing the middle of the finger up. And push back and then squeeze your shoulder blades together. They've created all this stability with our hands. Now squeeze the shoulder blades together, trying to take your biceps towards your ears. And then we'll extend the left leg straight back and behind us. And let's step that left foot forward and into lunge. We'll spin our right heel down and take our right hand up into warrior two. Guides us all the way up into the top of the shape. Make sure you take that good strong bend for that front knee. Give that lateral edge energy in the left quad. Roll that right hip back towards the left side of the mat. Then spin your right heel up, take both hands into crescent. Good rotation, strengthen that back right leg. And then we're gonna roll the back heel down and come back into a little bit wider version of warrior two. It just happens that the legs get a little bit wider. Take that space, then allow the right hand to come down on the right thigh. Turn the left palm over so it faces the ceiling, and then take the left arm so it runs straight up. So we want this left arm to be vertical. Keep the left arm vertical as you slide the right arm down that back leg. So right arm comes down, left arm's reaching straight up, the palms towards the back of the room. Really feel that left side of the body from the hip to the armpit looking for room. And then we'll come right back into a traditional version of warrior two. Spin the right heel up, both hands reach up towards the ceiling. Float the hands down to the mat. And let's step the left foot back and into down dog. Feel that little bit of imbalance, sway the hips. Pedal in here when you're right, when you're ready. Send that right leg straight back and behind you. And then we'll step that right foot forward and into lunge. Ground the left heel. Let the left hand carry us up and into warrior two. Wide expansiveness. Find that space, find that room. Then the left heel spins up. We roll to crescent. Make sure you keep that strength and stability in the left knee. Ground the left heel, roll yourself back open into two. Feel that space, then turn your right palm over. Take your left hand down to the thigh. Right arm reaches straight up. It stays vertical as we slide back down that left leg. Again, creating the maximum distance from the right hip to the right armpit. That is our goal here. Really reaching that right hand with the palm towards the back of your room, high as we can. When you're ready, we come back into a traditional 2. Left heel spins up and we are in crescent. Float the hands down to the mat. Step that right foot back and into down dog. Lift your gaze to the front of the mat and we'll step or float into that space. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Sweep yourself all the way up and overhead. Exhale the hands to heart center. Anchor yourself here. Squeeze in the glutes, squeeze in the quads. Feel the feet press down into the mat. So I can get myself into a shape where you can see me. Then we're going to take our hands from heart center up and overhead, and we'll grab opposite elbows if it's accessible. If not, grab the wrist. Then take your feet and try to make them one fist apart. Re-engage that quad space and then squeeze into the glutes like 80%, maybe 100%. Really lock in that glute energy. And then we're going to lean over towards the left. Squeezing into that glutes helps stabilize and keep the belly button right in the middle of the torso, or excuse me, right in the middle of the pelvic bowl. And then come back to neutral. Relax the arms back to heart center and just allow everything to relax. That's a lot of work when you squeeze the glutes out hard. So breathe, relax, try to deregulate any increase in the heart rate. And when you're ready, we'll sweep those arms back up and grab opposite elbows. Now, switch the elbow grab. So whichever felt comfortable, just go to the one that doesn't feel comfortable, putting the less comfortable version in front of you. Then flex into those quads, squeeze into the glutes like 80%, maybe 100%. And we're going to lean over towards the right. Really keeping that glute squeeze so the belly button stays right in the middle of the pelvic bowl. Come back to neutral. And exhale through forward fold. Let the head go here. Inhale into lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, walk yourself back into plank. And from plank, lower yourself to your belly. Slide the hands back underneath the forehead for just a little crocodile pose. We're not going to force the extension energy tonight. A lot of times we get down there, we're playing with those cobras. Maybe we're playing with a sphinx. Tonight we're going to use the lateral lengths that we're working for to create the space between the vertebrae. And with that in mind, when you're in your folds, when we're working through our forward folds, seated or standing, really try to keep the lumbar a little more neutral. So try to keep a little more belly engagement, a little more abdominal engagement when we're in our forward folds. As we work through the rest of class tonight. So he's sitting around this table. He's notified the entirety of the capsule. No one is to interrupt him. And he's just starting to tell this massive group of people that he's been just a little more agitated and that he may be a little gruff and grumpy during this meeting. And somebody bursts through the door and they haven't even started to ask him what they need to ask him. And he just, boom, explodes on them. Now, keep in mind, the person that he exploded on was not the person who interrupted the meeting. He was just delivering the message. But the explosion of anger from the king is enough that the room tone shifts so much that when the king tries to go back to this meeting, he recognizes that he's ruined it and he dismisses everyone. And the entirety of the day is called off. As everyone's leaving, he calls back his 5 most trusted advisors, and they all come and they sit around the chairs closest to him. Last 15 seconds here. When you're ready, hands slide underneath the shoulders. Bring some strength into the musculature just above the knees, and we'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. Hands and knees tabletop. Let's curl our toes, lift our seat, and find down dog. Remember here that your down dog, we haven't paid attention to the posterior chain, right? Lateral edge, but push down on those hands and use the intercostal space. Use the space in between the vertebra, in between the rib cage, into this depth, so that the tailbone can get deeper into the shape just by elongating the torso. And then we will walk ourselves forward and into fold. In this fold, remember, keep a little bit more belly engagement than normal. You can still allow for the flexion in the torso, so in the thoracic spine, so you can still get the head depth, but keep a little more engagement in the belly the rest of the way. And then we'll sweep ourselves all the way up and overhead. Exhale the hands to heart center. Sink our seat all the way back into chair. So we've only been 5% of the way back into this shape. Make sure that you keep your ankles and your knees nice and stacked. Tibia, fibia, nice and vertical. And then not taking the right elbow to the left thigh, but rotating straight with the torso, just rotating here. So just going hands to heart center and taking the rotation, not resting, and then come back to neutral. And then we'll do the same thing to the second side. Rotating, but keeping the spine nice and in line. And we'll come back to neutral and we'll lift all the way up. And exhale the hands to heart center. Take your feet out to the width of the mat and take your hands onto your hips, 4 fingers on the front of the hips, and the thumb kind of reaching back, trying to reach around the body. Feet at that width, squeeze into the glutes like 100%, 80% to 100%, and then we're gonna lean over to the left. And then once you get that settled shape, keep the left hand where it is and extend your right arm straight up. Try to give you a better view of what we're trying to do here. Angle, arm comes straight up off that angle. In a lot of ways, this is reminiscent of triangle or side angle. We'll come back to neutral. But you might feel how the psoas really gets pulled here. You can feel that deep musculature underneath the obliques really doing some work. And then we're going to take this to the second side. We lean over to the right. Right hand stays where it is. Left hand reaches straight out from that angle. And we really accentuate that. Psoas gets involved because we have a little bit of an impingement on the tilted side, and then this side is pulling the entirety of the length available to the body. And when we're right, we'll come back to neutral. Now keep your hands on your hips and keep your feet at the width of the mat, and we're just going to tilt ourselves forward and then all the way into the fold, keeping that core squeeze as you start to drop in. And then release your hands down to the mat, walk your feet back to traditional 2-fist width. And we'll slide the left foot straight back and into lunge. Okay. Now take your right hand onto the big toe edge of your right foot and ground your left heel. Bend deeply into that right knee and open yourself up into the side angle. Stack those arms so that the top arm is nice and vertical. Really think about that elongation of straight up. And then allow your left heel to spin up and your left hand to come down. Now, let's step back forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. And we'll slide the left foot straight back into lunge. Ground the left heel, left hand to the medial edge, big toe edge of the foot. Deeply bend into that front knee. Use all this side angle space and take your right hand straight up into the vertical stack. Feel the length on the side body here. When you're comfortable, when you're balanced, right heel comes up, right hand comes down, left hand back to its side, and we'll step back forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, walk yourself back into plank. From plank, slowly, gently, delicately lower yourself to your belly. Hands slide underneath the forehead, a little crocodile pose. A little reset here. Just allowing all that side body length to integrate. We're working our way towards a unique apex shape tonight that's really going to challenge the lateral length. So really trying to let all this space settle in. And really try to take that depth and just sink it into your breath. So that the inhale is a lateral expansion, the exhale is a relaxation into the space, not losing any of the space in the exhale portion of your breath. Last 20 seconds here. When you're ready, hands slide back underneath the shoulders, bring some strength into the musculature just above the knees. Let's press ourselves up, hands and knees, tabletop. Hands and knees, tabletop, curl your toes, lift your seat, find down dog. Send your right leg straight back and behind you. Step your right foot forward into lunge. Ground your left heel, right hand to the big toe edge, medial edge of the right foot. Open yourself back up into side angle. And from side angle, slide back into the right hamstring for triangle. Now, remember, you don't have to straighten the front knee. All we're looking to do is create elongation in the rib cage here. So sure, the posterior chain is getting taut as we slide back in the right hamstring, but we're not losing any of the length. Take the left hand and reach it straight forward, palm down, and turn your gaze over underneath the left armpit. And then release the left hand down to the mat, bend your right knee, and we will step all the way back and into down dog. Take the left leg and extend it straight back and behind you. Step that left foot forward into lunge. Ground the right heel, left hand to big toe, medial edge side of the left foot. Open yourself up into side angle. Stack that arm structure. When you're comfortable, slide back into the left hamstring. Really feel the back side of that left leg. Root through the handprint to handprint energy. Right hand comes down, right heel spins up, left knee bends. Step all the way back and into down dog. Now, take your right foot and step it about halfway between your left foot and your hands. So it's about halfway into the shape. And then ground your left heel and plant your right hand so that it can provide some stability. So you need to get in a place where the right hand can comfortably be elongated and the elbow can be fully flexed out. Then we're going to turn the right foot towards the left side of the rim and start to just lower yourself down onto that right thigh. Keeping the right hand right where it is, strong in the elbow. Take your left hand up and start to reach and extend towards that front edge of your room. Really blow that left elbow, left shoulder up. And then we'll release that left hand down, roll back up, step your right foot back and into down dog. And then let's do the same thing with our left side. So left foot steps halfway forward. We'll ground the right heel, turn the left toes towards the right side of your mat, and with the arm straight on the left side, slowly lower your left quad down, and then extend that right arm towards the front of the room. Keep that left arm nice and strong. Find that lengthened space, and then when you're comfortable and balanced, right hand comes back down to the mat, roll yourself back up, and step back into down dog. Push all the way back into down dog. See if you can get that thoracic extension. Then slowly lower yourself to tabletop, flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. Breathe into the ease of child's pose here. And just think about slowly smoothing out any tension across the spine. Smooth, fluid breaths here. We're going to give ourselves 40 more seconds just to feel the torso supported on our thighs. When you're right, when you're ready. Hands slide back in front of us. If they're not, inhale, pull yourself with your fingertips up towards hands and knees tabletop. And from hands and knees tabletop. Curl our toes, lift our seat, and find down dog. From down dog, step your left foot halfway forward. And then roll to the lateral edge of your right foot. So right foot stays long. You keep that right hand planted, left hand can be planted here too. And then we're going to turn the left foot out towards the left side of the room. Now, keeping that right arm straight, slowly lower yourself down until that right edge of your hip takes all of this length that we have been working on all class. Now, if you're feeling comfortable enough, you can take that left hand up. But this is a huge lateral act. So just keep that in mind. We've had to work the entirety of class just to get here. And then when you feel like you've had enough, left hand comes down, left foot rolls forward, right heel spins up. Step yourself back into down dog. Shift yourself forward into plank. Lift your seat back into down dog. Step your right foot halfway forward. Roll to the lateral edge of your left foot. Turn the right toes to face the right side of your mat, and keeping that left arm straight, lower your hips down until that hip is supported and you feel that lateral length. It comes from keeping the arm straight. So really maintain that straight. And then you also get that hip flexor engagement. And then if it feels comfortable for you, if you're feeling up to it, you can take that right arm straight up. That's not a necessary part of this shape. It helps to get the spine a little bit more vertical, encourage a little bit more vertical length. But lateral edge length is coming from the straightness of this arm. When you feel balanced, Right hand comes down, right foot faces back towards the front of your room. Left heel spins up, step yourself back into down dog. Find that link through the hips and tailbone. Lift your awareness to the front of the mat. We'll step or float into that space. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Sweep yourself up and overhead. And exhale your hands to heart center. Whew. Breathe here. Little engagement of the glutes and a little engagement of the quads, just to have some integrity in the torso so that the rib cage space that we've worked on stays with us here. That is a huge ask of the body. Fluid breath right here. When it feels right, when you feel comfortable, we'll sweep the arms. Exhale through fold, keeping that little belly tautness. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Sink the seat to the heels. Extend our legs out in front of us in this seat. And then just follow the legs forward into a fold. And breathe here. Remember that we're trying to keep some level of integrity in the lumbar spine. So we're not trying to go full flexion in the lumbar. We can have some flexion in the thoracic, but really try to keep some lumbar neutrality here. So a little bit of belly squeeze to maintain that. And when you feel right, torso comes back up to vertical. Lower yourself back onto your spine with an opportunity to compare and contrast the start of class to where we are right now. We'll give ourselves about 45 seconds of integration here. So nothing to do but to relax into the shape, into the support underneath you. So with his 5 most trusted advisors around him, he apologizes to them. He continues on with the fact that he's just been overstressed and overtaxed. He's a relatively young king. He leans on his advisors significantly. And one by one, they say that he should do something. That the effort of gathering this many people into a room cannot be lost to the smallest interruption. And they all advise him that he should seek out meditation, guidance within the meditation. Okay, when you're right, when it feels comfortable, when you're ready, let's allow the bottoms of the feet to come together and the knees to fall out wide, but we're not going to stay here long. So this is just a quick little reset of the hips, all that work we did in the rotations, and you can have the hands underneath the lateral edge to support you here, but we're only going to be here for another 15 seconds. Just a little medial line open before we go into one last lateral edge opening. So when you're comfortable, when you're ready, knees are going to come back up. You can help them if that feels most comfortable. Then extend your legs straight down the mat. Bottoms of the feet, heels push away from you. And then we are going to interlace the fingers, palms down kind of on the sternum. And then walk your feet over to the left corner of the mat. So both feet are touching one another, big toes pressing together at the left corner of your mat. And then flip your palms over and let the back of your hands, fingers interlaced, rest on your forehead. So you end up with hands resting on your forehead, thumbs pointed down, and the pinkies are on the forehead, upside of your head. And then take your left elbow over towards the left of your mat. Right elbow will essentially reach up, so it's pointing towards the right corner of your mat. Now, when we did this the first time, we had our hands behind our head and we didn't have the feet. We didn't have the feet involved in the shape. We also didn't have as much lateral edge space on the right side of your body. So really think about allowing that right elbow to help guide the left elbow into more and more of this crunch on the left side of the body. So right elbow continues to point up. You can almost push that elbow up, and as the right elbow pushes up, it pulls length along the right lateral edge. Remember that you need to breathe and breathe completely in both the inhale and exhale directions. That is probably the hardest part of this shape. And then we'll come back to neutral with the head, torso, and then neutral with the feet. And let the arms open to cactus and just feel the bilateral imbalance here. The right side of the body has an incredible amount of space. Feel how the rib cage feels on the right and left side, how the breath feels on the right and left side. And then when you're ready, we're going to walk both feet over to the right corner. Bring the hands to rest on top of the sternum, palms down, fingers interlaced. Then we'll flip the palms and let the back of the hands rest on the forehead, thumbs down, pinkies toward the forehead top side. And then start to tuck that right elbow down. Head comes over towards that right side. Left elbow reaches up. You're making yourself into kind of a half C, half banana, right? And then that left elbow can start to push up. As the left elbow pushes away from you, the entirety of the musculature on the left side of the body starts to find its final form, its final bit of elongation for this class. And eventually, when you feel balanced, right to left, no rush to make this happen. Really listen to when your body feels balanced. You're going to come back to neutral, head first, feet second, arms to cactus. And the body just melts against the mat here. Allow that to happen. So the king, again, being progressive enough to listen to his counsel, seeks out the aid of a yogi to start a meditative practice. And he calls the yogi in and asks him what he needs. The yogi's very specific. He says, I need 2 days with you. I need no interruptions. And I need to have access to the royal kitchen for the entirety of the day. You and I will spend 3 hours together from 5 to 8 o'clock p.m. and that will be it. King says, okay, those are very easy demands for me to meet. How sure are you this will be successful? The yogi says, I'm 100%. When you're right, when you're ready, knees back to neutral or kneecaps towards the ceiling. I like to call this neutral. You can call it whatever shape feels most comfortable for you. And then that's, or whatever name feels most comfortable for you. And then let's rock the knees side to side. Remember that you have a ton of lateral space here. So as the hips are rotating, as the knees are rotating, don't overextend yourself. I know that there's a floor that can stop you, but remember that the top leg also can compress down a little bit extra. So that lateral space can turn into a little hip collapse. Try not to allow or make that happen. And we'll just sway back and forth for about another 15 seconds here. Now, when you're comfortable, when you're right, just allow the knees to fall over to one side or the other, whatever side feels most appropriate for you. If the hips are compressing down, if you're feeling some imbalance in the hips, if you have a prop available, you can just have that in between the thighs or underneath that bottom lateral edge. Or you can give yourself a little lift and rotate your hips a little bit more so the bottom hip, whichever side you've rolled towards, tucks underneath you a little bit. So the pelvic bowl is a little bit more aligned vertically. So the yogi goes and he asks the royal kitchen to make all the king's favorite meals. All of them, every single one of them. And then he shows up at 5 o'clock. The king greets him. They go into the royal dining hall and they sit down and they sit in silence. And eventually the king breaks the silence and says, you know, when do we get to work? And the yogi's like, oh, they're going to bring in food. And as he says that, food pops into the room. It's one of the king's favorite appetizers. They start eating that. They start talking. And then the next dish rolls in. They're talking. They're having a really good conversation. Both of them are having a lot of fun. They're laughing a lot. And then the third dish, and they're laughing more and they're laughing more. And then before you know it, it's 8:00. And the yogi says, it's 8:00. It's time for me to go home. And the king says, well, we've had such a good night. We haven't done anything. Why don't we at least go for a walk? It's beautiful. It's snowing outside. When you're ready, knees come back to neutral. And then let your knees fall over to that second side. So the yogi agrees. They go for this walk. They head out. They're continuing this conversation, laughing, and both of them are just enjoying the heck out of their night. They turn this corner, and as they turn the corner, the king is pelted in the face with a snowball. And then another, and another, and another. And there are these 5 kids, and they're just chucking snowballs. And the king pushes the yogi, and he says, don't just stand there. Let's get some snowballs and duck into cover. And they duck behind the corner, and they're making snowballs, and they're throwing them at these kids, and they're laughing, and the kids are laughing. And eventually the yogi and the king are throwing enough snowballs that the kids just run off into the night. And the yogi turns to the king and he says, I think that's enough excitement for me. I'm going to head home. And both of them go back their separate ways. When you're ready, knees come back to neutral. Let the eyes close. Let the awareness drift within. Ask yourself if there's anything at all you might need before Shavasana. And offer it. If there's anything at all your body wants, would benefit from, offer that. And if not, if you're ready, just drift all the way in to Shavasana. As the yogi's walking away, the king calls out and he says, hey, it was a great night, but we didn't work on my problem at all. That means you have 3 hours left tomorrow to fix me. Just a reminder. Sure enough, the next night, the yogi shows up, 5:00 on the dot. The exact same thing happens. They go into the dining hall, they sit down, and right away, instead of silence this time, the king says, okay, we need to get to work. Yesterday was fun and all, but I brought you here for a very specific reason. It wasn't to eat my food and have fun. And so the yogi says, oh, let's enjoy dinner. This won't take long at all. And the king says, you guaranteed me success. I hope you have something great here. And the yogi, the first meal comes in, it's the same appetizer, favorite appetizer. The yogi says, okay, here's the deal. We don't need to spend the rest of the night worrying about this. Here's the deal. When something you don't like happens, you have the choice on how you respond. And the king snaps. And he says, you don't understand the position I'm in. I'm under a lot of pressure. It's not the fact that I have a choice. It's the life situations that I live. I'm the king. You don't understand that. Drifting and easing into Shavasana when you're ready. Instantaneously, as the king ends his sentence about not being a choice and living the life as a king being an ununderstandable position, an interruption bursts through the door. And it is someone with a message that there's a mess in the royal kitchen. And the king, rage starts to build. He yells at this person. He says, "No interruptions. I booked out these 2 days." And almost as instantly as that person leaves, the next comes in with an interruption. It's another thing about there being some nonsense in the royal bedroom. And he bursts at them. And then the interruptions slow down for a little bit. And the king is just livid. It is obvious. Dessert comes out, and it is his favorite dessert. It's this mango drizzled in killer bee honey. And the king is like a little bit alleviated, satiated by the fact that this dessert's here. He puts his spoon into the mango, and as he does that, another interruption bursts through the door. Before this man even says anything, the king picks up his plate and chucks it at him, just missing. It explodes behind this man's head. The man turns and scurries out of the room. And the yogi turns to the king and he says, I think that's enough. Why don't we go on a walk? And the king's like, I don't want to go anywhere with you. You said you were going to fix these problems. And the yogi says, let's go on a walk. And begrudgingly, the king agrees. They head out. It's snowing. The king's like, I don't want to be out here in this snow. Let's go back. And the yogi's like, the snow was beautiful last night. Come on, let's just go on a walk. 5 minutes, it'll make you feel better. You need it, obviously. They turn a corner, and as they turn a corner, the king is pelted in the face with a snowball. And he erupts. He erupts, shouting at these kids that he's going to have their parents sent to the gallows. And the yogi turns and he looks at the king. Start to move your fingers and your toes. Your wrists, ankles, elbows, knees. Torso starts to move. As the torso moves, feel that lateral length, feel that rib cage space, feel that intercostal space. Shoulders start to move, neck starts to move, hips starts to move, head starts to move. Jaw and eyes can start to move. Eventually there's enough movement in our body that we can transition from the shape we are in back into a seat. And in the seated space, let's let our spine get tall, breath get fluid, eyes close. And we'll just breathe here. Your next inhale, we'll bring our hands together, heart center. So the yogi looks at the king and he says, see, I told you. It's not the situation you're in, it's the choice you make. Yesterday, today, you were pelted with snowballs. You chose completely different responses. And that was on you. Over the course of the next 7 days, as situations arise that you are uncomfortable with, can you remind yourself it's your choice on how to respond and see how that impacts your experience? Thank you so much for being a part of tonight's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you being here. Love seeing so many of you taking care of yourself into the holiday season. I'll be back next Sunday to recharge and next Monday to move a little bit. Love the heck out of you. Have a beautiful week. Mwah.